Okay, we're going to continue on the review where we left off. We have number 16 here. Find the distance between points P and Q. Keyword here is distance. We're going to be using the distance formula. You remember, distance formula is x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So we have to figure out which one. I'm going to go ahead and use 5 as my x2. So we're going to say 5 minus 1 squared plus, and 1 here is going to be my y2, 1 minus my other y coordinate, which is 3 squared. Ignore that 4. So 5 minus 1 is 4 squared, plus 1 minus 3 is negative 2 squared. 4 squared is 16, negative 2 squared is 4. So we end up with the square root of 20. And we put that in our calculator to the nearest tenth. Put that in the calculator, hit enter, and I believe you end up with 4.4 something, 4.5, 4.7, which when we round it to the nearest tenth, we end up with A, 4.5. Okay, number 17, our points D, H, and C collinear or non-collinear? Those points are, D is right here, C is right here, and H is right here. Do they all lie on the same plane? That's what collinear means. If they don't lie on the same, I'm sorry, not the same plane, on the same line. If they don't lie on the same line, then it would be non-collinear. Can I draw one line and have it go through all 3 points? I cannot. Therefore, those 3 points are non-collinear. They are all on the same plane, so they're coplanar, but they are not collinear. Okay, what's the contrapositive of this statement? Now, if it's the contrapositive, remember, we flip the statements and we write the negation. So this right here is going to come last, and this is going to be first. So we're going to say if a figure is not a triangle, then it does not have 3 sides. So we've flipped them, and we come up with the negation of each. We're going to add the not to both terms. So D is my answer. Complete the statement. If a transversal intersects 2 parallel lines, then remember, complementary, none of the angles are going to be complementary in this situation. They're either congruent or supplementary. Corresponding angles are always congruent, not supplementary. Same side exterior, those are not congruent. Those actually end up being supplementary. Alternate interior angles are congruent. These angles are congruent, so the answer is C. 20. 20's a little bit tricky because they're kind of, you really have to know the vocabulary. If it says that it's a complement, that sounds like complementary. That means the complement of an angle is 36, meaning a number that when you add 36 to it equals 90. So how do we figure out the angle? 90 minus 36. And when you do that, you end up getting 54, which is C. Okay. Number 21, write an equation in slope-intercept form having the given slope and y-intercept. Well, it's in slope-intercept form. That is y equals mx plus b. And you're given the slope and the y-intercept. So all we have to do is plug that in. So it's going to be y equals the slope, negative 2/3 x, plus the b, which is negative 4, which is the same thing as just minus 4. So my answer is B. Okay, number 22. C and B are perpendicular. This is C down below, and this is B right here. So that means that's a right angle. A is parallel to C, so these two lines are parallel. Now if they're parallel and it's perpendicular to one, it's also perpendicular to the other because they're congruent. What is the measure of angle 1? The angle 1 is right here. Well, if one angle is perpendicular, aren't vertical angles congruent, so that's perpendicular? And if they form a linear pair, wouldn't that be 90 degrees as well? In fact, all of these angles are perpendicular, are right angles, which if they're all right angles, angle 1 is 90 degrees. All right, number 23, DEF is 101 degrees. What are the measures of FEG and HEG? Well, HEG is a vertical angle, it's congruent, so HEG is 101 degrees. Not going to be this, it's not going to be that, so it's either A or D. Well, angle FEG, this angle right here, it's a linear pair. These two angles right here. So 101 plus this angle equals 180 degrees. So we can just take 180 and subtract 101 to find out what that X is. And we find it to be 79. So the answer is A. Number 24, let's zoom in here. It says that BOC is 25. That's this angle right here is 25 degrees. AOC, the whole entire angle, is 59. What's the measure of AOB? That angle right there we don't know. Well, 25 plus X is going to equal 59. So if we subtract 25 from 59, we can find out what X is. It's 34. And that's my answer. Okay, 25. Find the coordinates of the midpoint. You remember the midpoint formula was x1 plus x2 over 2. Alright, and the formula for the y coordinate would be y1 plus y2 divided by 2. So we're going to add the x's, divide by 2, add the y's, divided by 2. We end up with 3 plus 5 divided by 2, and the y's would be 8 plus 4 divided by 2. 3 plus 5 is 8, 8 plus 4 is 12, and those two simplify to 4, 6, which would be the answers. D. Okay, number 26. The star exhibits rotational symmetry. What is the angle of rotational symmetry? Well, we would have to find out how many points, how many times we could rotate in 360 degrees, and there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rotations that we could make. So we would take 360, divide it by 5, 365, and that we would end up with 72. So my answer is, that would be the angle of rotational symmetry, 72 degrees. All right, 27. The measure of EOF is 36 degrees. The measure of FOG is 24 degrees. What's the measure of EOG, the entire angle? Well, that's as simple as saying 36 plus 24, which would give us 60. My answer would be B. 28, what's the name of the segment inside the large triangle? You'll notice that it's splitting this large angle into two congruent angles. That means it is bisecting the angle. It's an angle bisector. What object shows rotational symmetry? Well, remember, rotational symmetry is when we rotate the object, and the only one a circular plate, we could rotate it and it could map itself. It would not work with the car, would not work with a butterfly. Butterfly would have line symmetry. And a triangular sandwich, that choice actually kind of sounded odd. I guess unless it's an equilateral triangle, but I've never seen an equilateral triangle sandwich, so I'm assuming they're talking about, you know, when you have a sandwich and you cut it in half, that triangle right there would not have rotational symmetry. At least that's what I got from that question. And the last one for this section, it says that Q is equidistant. That means these two segments are congruent. And if they're congruent, that means this ray is an angle bisector. So we have two congruent angles. So if we're solving for x, we say that 2x plus 23 is equal to the other angle, which is just 35. And then we solve for x. Subtract 23 from both sides, divide by 2, and x equals 6. And we're looking for the value of x, so that is my answer, B. All right, we'll look at the other questions tomorrow.